Have you ever wondered why Christopher Nolan explains how time runs backwards in Tenet with a shot almost identical to Memento's opening?
The beginning of Memento has a sequence that's shown in reverse chronology because the entire film is then structured in reverse chronology, and so I included a backwards opening. It's sort of stuck with me that I'd be interested in exploring that reality. We're the first people to ever be able to see time in different ways. It's the movie camera that's shown us time backwards. It's one of the original kind of fascinating effects of what a movie camera can show us. And so I became interested in the idea quite some time ago, really following on from Memento.
What if a character had to physically walk through a world where time was flowing backwards?
That would be bad, right?
Now you should be accustomed to how time travel usually works in the movies. A time voyager hops into a machine, sets a date, and kaboom. He's back in the 1950s, trying to avoid hooking up with his own mother.
I gotta go. Thanks very much. It was wonderful. You were all great. See y'all later.
But in this flick, the machine is just your run-of-the-mill rewind button.
What if you could literally change the direction of time for a character or for an object and have two directions of time existing in the same frame? So not time travel, not jumping around in time, but actually looking at the physical process of time.
Admittedly, it's a pretty rough idea for a movie though. So Nolan keeps it on ice for 15 years. And somewhere along the way, he runs into an old Roman rock called the Sator Square. It's a palindrome, 5 Latin words. And you can read this thing in every single direction, and it reads exactly the same way. Now you and I look at that and think, hey, that's one badass rock. Nolan looks at it and thinks, Warner Brothers is about to peel me off $200 million for this.
Well, it seems bold.
Bold, I'm fine with. I thought you were going to say nuts.
But 5 Latin words and a backward flying bullet do not entirely make for a summer blockbuster. So Nolan spends 5 years writing it. He chooses a spy thriller as the genre, because in a spy movie, cause and effect uncertainty is practically the whole point.
Yeah, I just went into that mythology fully because what I was sort of trying to do was create a stylized science fiction experience on top of that. And so you're trying to use, the same way Memento tried to use the familiarity of the tropes of the film noir, Tenet is an attempt to use the audience's familiarity with the spy movie genre, the Bond movie, to be able to take it someplace a little crazier, someplace a little different, and have us experience it in a different way. So I think the spy genre was always really part of it for me because it's the genre that gives you access to all of these wonderful kinetic action movie tropes, the gunfight, the car chase, armies fighting each other, these kind of things. And what I wanted to do was really explore the sort of experience of watching an action film and watching a spy movie, to try and sort of take it to another level and find a reason for an audience to watch a car chase again and watch it in a different way and try and sort of look down the other end of the telescope at a lot of these tropes that we all kind of know and love from action cinema. Saying to today's audiences, I sort of felt like for me to really engage with it, I wanted it to have bigger possibilities. I wanted to do it in a way that I was excited about. What we did with Inception for the heist genre is really what Tenet attempts to bring to the spy movie genre.
Did you direct your own Bond movie doing Tenet?
I think I did, yeah.
And to probably show off to his Latin professor, he weaves words from that ancient stone into his movie like a quilt. Tenet is the secret organization. The bad guy's name is Sator. His security firm is called Rotus. The movie opens at an opera, and there's a guy off screen named Arepo. And after all that, he was completely spent. So he just names the protagonist the protagonist.
I was thinking a lot of Sergio Leone westerns, like with Clint Eastwood, as, the man with no name. And
This is all very, very touching.
This is cowboy shit. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
So glad he didn't name the algorithm the MacGuffin, and the movie the movie.
You have a better option.
But here's the thing about the Sator Square. Every letter in the grid is locked in place by every other letter. So Nolan wrote the story as a palindrome.
it's quite distinct from time travel, per se, or time travel movies.
The hero gets recruited, fights, wins, and then finds out at the end he was the one who recruited himself in the first place. His job from there is to go back and make sure every event he just lived through plays out entirely the way it transpired.
What?
Which forced Nolan to commit to a paradox that every other time movie pretends doesn't exist.
The grandfather paradox.
You know, if you build a time machine, you go back in time and kill your grandfather before your dad is born.
How could you have been born to commit the act?
What's the answer?
There's no answer. It's a paradox.
There's a sense in which we're addressing the idea that we're all sort of imprisoned in a way in our own views of the passage of time.
Which means when you strip away all that jumbled Latin, Nolan just wrote Groundhog Day.
What? See? I knew you were going to say that.
Except instead of Bill Murray trying to break out of the loop, the Murricane is running around with a gun, desperately trying to preserve it. In all seriousness, the closest movie to Tenet you can watch tonight is probably Predestination. And if your brain hurts processing Tenet, get yourself an ice pack and some aspirin for Predestination.
You just have to close your eyes.
Why do I need to close my eyes?
So Nolan takes his Groundhog Day Latin palindrome spy thriller and pitches it to Warner Brothers. And wouldn't you know it, after billions and billions of dollars that Nolan made making movies no studio executive will ever understand, that would suffice for them to write a fat check for his next one. Now Nolan has to cast this thing. He wants to surround his lead with heavy-hitter movie stars, but he wants the lead himself to be a complete unknown. So he searches high and low, and he finally stumbles upon this completely unknown, struggling former football player named John David Washington, who just happens to be Denzel Washington's son. I'm telling you, those From Zero to Hero stories are my favorite ones.
I'm not who you think I am.
But here's how it actually went down.
I'd first noticed John David on the HBO show Ballers, which is just one of those things where he just struck me with his charisma. I was about halfway through writing it when I was in the Cannes Film Festival with a print of Kubrick's 2001, and Spike Lee invited me to the world premiere of BlacKkKlansman. And just watching John David's charisma in the film, the way he opens the film up to the audience and carries the audience with him through that story, it was very hard for me to get him out of my mind afterwards while I continued writing the script. Because I tried to write without actors in mind. But after I'd seen him in that film and seen how, as I say, he carried us with him on that journey, it was very tough for me to not think of him while I was writing after that, much as I tried. And so when I had finished the script, I called up.
I get told by my agents that Christopher Nolan wants to have a meeting with you. So I was like, I didn't think it was real. I didn't know what it was about.
I'll say this too. I was 30 minutes late. I know. And Emma greets me at the door, his wife, producing partner, and she's just laughing. And I think she could see how panicked I was.
I ended up meeting Chris, and then we ended up talking for a couple hours. Last thing he said after that meeting was like, well, good luck. I was like, oh, well, that's it. I guess I did terribly.
And then after that, I got the call saying, will you be the protagonist?
First time I read the Tenet script, coming off a wild buzz of and excitement of knowing that I got the job. Remember going to their office, Christopher Nolan's office.
I'm in Christopher Nolan's office, reading a script of his. What is my life? I thought I was gonna do another season of Ballers. Like, I know this was gonna happen. Like, yeah, I didn't understand that shit. Like, it took about 3+ hours to read it,
Don't try to understand it. Feel it.
John David, other than being an incredible actor with tremendous charisma, he's also an athlete. He was a professional American football player, and we absolutely exploited that. He was able to bring a physicality to the role that was essential. The thing about physically talented performers is you want to get a gauge on what they can do themselves, because if you have an absolute divide between what the actor can do and then what the stunt performer can do, if the actor's only really walking and talking, and every time he breaks into a run you have to get someone else in, it's pretty limiting in terms of how you shoot things. You're trying to create an iconic spy figure. It's no small thing, and the physicality is a huge part of that, his ability to be able to fight and run and just really bring an energy and a freshness to the screen that you haven't seen in a long time. And I think John David just really delivered the goods.
We did so many scenes where we're just running, and John David can just sprint, just again 100 takes in a row, and I'm just like, in my mid-30s, I can barely do anything.
Then he brings in Robert Pattinson, the sparkly vampire with the top-shelf bone structure. Now, Pattinson had spent the last 7 years doing the absolute weirdest indie movies, strictly to make people forget he played a 100-year-old dude hanging around a high school.
That's not possible. He just has done such challenging and interesting work in the last few years in independent films. You're looking at this guy who's wanting to challenge himself. He's wanting to do things very different.
And it works. Christopher Nolan calls him up, but Pattinson reads the script, and he doesn't understand a single word of it.
You can completely overwhelm yourself with the
The ideas in it, it's so complicated. You just thought it's so insane.
Look, Bobby, it's not that complex. It's just a guy moving backward to prevent a guy moving forward from helping the forward guys destroy the backward guys, just to save the forward guys. It's basic arithmetic.
Jesus.
It's purely a cinematic concept.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to sit in a movie theater and watch it and let it wash over you and sort of experience it. It's not something you can intellectualize. It's not a puzzle to be unpacked. It's an experience to be had. Everything else, if people are interested to talk about it or debate it, you know, more, or if ideas resonate, that's a huge bonus. But for me, it's really all about that emotional experience of watching the film with an audience.
Blah, blah, blah.
Then it comes to casting the British lady.
I saw Elizabeth Debicki in Widows, and I said to Chris, you have to see that movie for her because she's just incredible.
And he immediately rejects her because of her American accent.
I'm not really sure what you mean.
So his better half has to explain to her hubs that Debicki is so talented, she duped him. She is in fact Australian.
You just have to trust.
Kenneth Branagh plays Andrei Sator, the Russian bad guy.
When I went for my first costume fitting, Christopher Nolan walked back from the set with me and he said, I just need you to know that this fella is unremittingly bad. He said, don't look for anything good. Don't try and redeem him. Don't find the softer side. There isn't one.
It reminds me somewhat of what Heath brought to the Joker when we made The Dark Knight.
And I thought my jokes were bad.
Because it really wasn't the type of villain where you get overly concerned with the justifications for the behavior. It's really much more about a destructive presence in the world and having to respond to that.
He gets a dialect coach.
Sator has a Russian accent, and to speak in reverse in a Russian accent at pace while fighting and walking backwards is unquestionably a challenging thing for an actor to do.
I feel like speaking backwards with a Russian accent now will become like new actor code for like, but have you done your homework? Can you speak backwards in a Russian accent? 3,
2, 1. Dimple Kapadia plays the arms dealer.
I go up to my nephew and I tell him, I've been offered a Chris Nolan film. So he goes, on to Chris Nolan, prestige to Chris Nolan. I said, okay, chill. It might be a crank call, you know, let's not get our hopes too high.
She has been a legendary Bollywood star since 1973, and Tenet was her very first major Hollywood role.
It's unique.
And of course, you have Michael Caine. By 2020, it's become a Nolan tradition.
It's just lovely to have a little bit of Michael.
So they start shooting. And here's a number that doesn't really make sense. Tenet has 280 visual effects shots. Most modern romantic comedies have more visual effects work than Tenet does, which means everything you see on the screen is the real deal.
This is my third film with Chris. You read it and you kind of realize when you read it, oh shit, how are we gonna do this? Because he's going to want to do this for real.
The audience is always aware on some level of the difference between things that are animated and something that's been photographed. That has a patina and a texture and a flavor and a taste to things that is unfamiliar to people.
He films on a real 200-foot super yacht. He goes to the real Amalfi Coast. He uses the real fastest catamaran racing boats on planet Earth. The critics call this uncompromising cinematic dedication, but I call it a plush 6-month getaway vacation on Warner Brothers' dime.
Dunkirk was a large-scale film, but it was very, very specific to one time and place. Without being too reactive to that, I wanted to go all around the world again. In spy films in particular, I think one of the reasons that we're so drawn to the genre is escapism, and is the idea of these characters who get to live in a world that we don't get to live in.
When you're a kid and you think about the way they make huge Hollywood movies, this is what I would imagine that to be. Like this massive team of people that travel the world, go to these incredible locations and shoot all of this amazing stuff. That is Tenet in a nutshell.
But the biggest example of the reality over VFX is the airplane.
You want to crash a plane,
but not from the air. Not so dramatic.
It's really fun as a filmmaker when you get to do things that just reduce you back to that sort of childlike state of, you know, what are the possibilities of a giant movie.
A lot of these sequences, you kind of read it in the script and you just think, yeah, would be cool in a movie.
How are they gonna pull this off? Like, there's no way they're gonna crash this thing into that building.
And then you get to set and they say, yeah, we've got a 747, we're crashing it into a building. That's how we're achieving the 747 crashing into a building.
Now, normally a director uses a miniature plastic toy, or he paints it in with a computer, but not our Nolan. He goes out to a used airplane lot in the California desert, where they park all these old jets. He's just walking around the lot, kicking the tires.
When I looked at 737s, they looked a bit small compared to the 747s and the MD-11s I was seeing on the other side. It's like, well, maybe we could just go shopping there instead.
He looks across the lot and he spots an exceptionally large retired 747 jumbo jet, and he just buys it. And you know the official story they told the studio executives? Actually buying a real 747 and physically smashing it into a building is much cheaper than doing it on a computer.
It was actually a pretty good deal when we priced it out relative to building the set for the interior, building the set for the exterior, building a miniature, CG, etc., etc. When we added it all up, we realized that it was actually going to be cheaper and more efficient to buy the plane. And we took the engines off first and sold the engines, and that paid for quite a lot of it, because the engines are the expensive bit.
So he's obsessed with doing it all for real. The opening scene of the picture is in this giant abandoned Soviet opera house in Tallinn.
It was built for the Soviet Union's 1980 Olympics. It's brutalist architecture, and it sits out overlooking the Baltic Sea. Actually, I think it's one of my favorite buildings we've ever shot in.
They fix the whole place up. They bring in 3,500 extras, and they wire the entire room with high explosives. But right in the middle of this gratuitous, carefully choreographed terrorist attack, Nolan makes sure the camera gets a very clear shot of one of the assassins, curb stomping a cello. Nolan deliberately put that shot into the movie. He's currently learning the instrument. Apparently the cello is winning.
That's definitely my frustrations with the cello and my inability to learn it.
Then they gotta shoot the big car chase. So they just shut down 5 miles of highway right in the middle of the capital of Estonia.
I mean, I've done plenty of car chases before, but this was, shutting down a major route in a city for about 3 weeks.
Look, I don't know much about the Estonian economy, but I'm pretty sure Christopher Nolan just paused their entire country so the 20 best stuntmen in the world could practice driving in reverse.
We shut down a freeway across the city, and we had to do that. The stunt guys had to do that with cars. They had to do it with driving, and literally do a chase forwards with regular vehicles, forwards and with vehicles that would drive backwards at speed, and then the other way around. And so everything was sort of shot 4 different ways, and they did just an incredible job putting together all these rigs to be able to do that.
And right in the middle of this traffic jam, you got Robert Pattinson.
I think I did 1 day of training of driving backwards, made my teacher feel so sick he had to stop. And so I assumed, all right, that's next my driving for the movie.
The stunt team did an evaluation on him, and they were really impressed. And so he ended up doing a lot of his own driving.
It was like one of the most exciting theme park rides you've ever been on in your life. And then you're trying to do a scene at the same time. I don't think they're going to be making movies like that.
He's doing his own stunt driving in a BMW with an IMAX camera bolted directly to the hood of the car.
There's so much sweat in your eyes, and you can't see out of the windscreen, and stuff, everything's blowing up around you. I mean, it was one of the more terrifying things that I've ever done in my entire life.
The final battle was shot with hundreds of extras running with pyrotechnics going off around them. Every one of them was ex-military. The casting department hired the kind of people who had already experienced explosions and chaos and wouldn't freak out at the idea of spending a full day avoiding being blown up.
The battle at Stos 12 at the end, that's the area of the film where you're paying off the concept for the audience, and you can take it to a bigger scale of action.
We've done a lot of movies with green screen stuff. It just feels like such a privilege to be doing it. It feels like, make the building that explodes itself and comes back together. It feels very, very real. Essentially because it is real.
But the real production nightmare were the fights. Because half the action in this picture has to play out in 2 different directions of time at once. So Nolan goes to his stunt coordinator and gives him the following instructions.
So he's like, so you should put a fight together of one guy fighting another guy, moving forward, and then play that backwards. And I was like, okay, so I'm kind of making my notes. And I'm like, okay, so fight forward and play it backwards. Then take the other guy away and have the guy who was first attacking watch the video of him doing it backwards. Then have him do the routine perfectly backwards. Then have somebody attack him as he's going backwards, and then flip that film, and that's your fight scene. And at that point, I just stopped writing and kind of looked up, and everybody at the table started laughing. And even Chris was like, I lost you, didn't I? And I'm like, you did. Yeah, you did.
I don't understand it. It's as easy as it gets. It's just your basic, everyday, forward, backward, reverse punching street fight. Anybody could follow it.
But there was a lot of punching of stunt doubles and them punching at me and then reverse punching at me to the stunt doubles and vice versa.
But the dude who really takes it on the chin is John David Washington. Because of this convoluted lunacy, he has to learn all the fight sequences 4 different ways.
So he had 2 versions of the fight to learn, protagonist, antagonist, and then he had to learn it backwards for both parts as well.
I remember Chris, after one of the meetings, he was like, it's gonna be hard. He said it just like that.
And we shot it day 1. You know, we started with it because I sort of felt like sometimes it's good to start with the hardest stuff, because we knew there were so many mind-bending things to work out later in the film. You know, if stunts and wardrobe and camera, you know, if everybody could come together and figure out how to do that, we'd be in better shape for when we got to the middle of Tallinn and shot the whole city down and did a massive car chase.
When you watch the film, it just plays so seamlessly. You don't realize how much time and effort went into putting the pieces together.
I literally directed the scene twice. Each piece of film is unique, and so everything is changed slightly in order to give you a different perspective on things. I mean, the most obvious example for people who've seen the film more than once may have noticed is tint, you know, on the mask that John David's wearing. It's completely dark the first time you're seeing that antagonist. The second time you see it, it's a lighter tint so that you can see his eyes through it, because we're seeing it from his perspective. So the camera's closer to him, we're seeing his expressions, and the camera angles are different and the axis is different.
Well, I've seen too much.
So the movie is finished, and now they just gotta roll it out in theaters to make a lot of money like they always do. But there's a hitch.
Not gonna like it.
You might recall around March of 2020, there was a bit of a bug going around. The whole world shuts down. So the executives at Warner Brothers tell Christopher Nolan something like, hey, maybe we should delay the movie for a little bit, you know, until it's legal to go outside again, and Nolan refuses. In late March, Nolan writes an op-ed in the Washington Post arguing that theaters need to reopen, and his film should be the first one to lead the way back. He genuinely believes Tenet can save cinema, so they release it in September. But New York is closed, Los Angeles is closed, and the theaters that are actually open, they only let you fill a quarter of the seats. So Christopher Nolan releases his $200 million movie to a room consisting of 4 guys wearing surgical masks and smelling like hand sanitizer. It makes some money, but it doesn't break even. 3 months later, Warner Brothers announces they're putting every single new movie directly onto HBO Max. They don't tell Nolan first. Nolan's response in his own words.
Filmmakers went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio and woke up to find out they were working for the worst streaming service.
Which is pretty harsh, considering Quibi was still in existence at the time.
The what?
That ends a 19-year partnership. Nolan walks out of Warner Brothers and never looks back. He goes to Universal. He makes a 3-hour movie about math. They release it in IMAX theatrical only and win 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Turns out he was right all along. We were really desperate to go back to the theaters.
That part is a little dramatic.